What's poppin'? My name is Richie and today I'm going to show you how you can create advanced NPCs with the new settings and devices that we got for the NPCs. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So in this video we're going to recreate this old NPC over here, which can not only detect the player's name and greet them with his actual name, but it can also give you emotions determined on what answer you're going to give them. So for example, if we say no here, we don't want to buy a gun, then Jonesy is very unhappy. Or if we want to buy a gun, then we get a gun and Jonesy is very happy. Alright, so this is how it looks in the edit form, and keep in mind this is a very simple form but includes everything that you need to know to create your own custom NPCs, because that is very important that you play around with your own NPCs and make them as custom to your liking as you need. In this video we're going to use the new options that this device has, and we're also going to use the new character controller device, which is a time saver and a memory saver for everybody that is using NPCs. Okay, starting out first, we're going to need obviously a character device. This is a new device which basically got introduced I think 2 weeks ago, and in here we need to customize it to our liking. First of all, the character is obviously completely on you. We don't need the pose because we have a new option in here which is super helpful. Make sure that transmit is always to on so we can actually interact with the buttons that the character has. Then we have a custom interaction text, make sure that it is also obviously custom to your character. Other than that, we need a character slot. This one is very important. This one comes in handy for the character device controllers. So basically, if we're gonna have a character slot here, it's gonna be the same slot in here, so we can link this character device to this NPC. Okay, so animation idols are basically animations that loop over and over again and just are there while the character is on standby. So the character is looking a little bit more realistic. You can see here before that, they just look like this. This is basically the same waiting animation, but this one is not doing anything. No arm movements, no eyes movements. And you can see here, if we quickly make this to a mirrors, you can see that the character is moving a little bit, the eyes are blinking, so it looks a little bit more natural and doesn't look like a puppet. Okay, so back to the character, you can see here that we have 5 animation idols, and depending on what you do, these will activate. But the important thing is that you actually have the use animation idol to yes, because otherwise they will actually just stand to the normal pose. So you can see here, if we go back, they just enter the pose over here, but we obviously want it to be more realistic, so we're gonna choose yes here. Alright, so coming to the channels, we need one channel for enabling and disabling, so make sure that you have custom channels in here, and we also need a channel on the interaction. Once that is said and done, our character should like this, and we have the talk to Jonesy animation over here. So if we press this, now we can see that the character greets us with, "Hey Richie Toons, I was waiting for you." And this is what we're going to create next. So to create this little text, first of all, we obviously need the billboard and we need to write a text down. So you can put whatever text you want to do in here. It doesn't really matter too much. But the most important thing, which a lot of people are asking, how do you put a custom player name in there and how the character actually recognizes which player is standing there? And for that, we're going to use a device which was previously called the NPC device by a lot of people, which is the player reference device. For that, we're going to go into the devices category and type in player. And this one over here. So this one is previously called the NPC device by a lot of people because it kind of looked like an NPC, but it can only project you and only your name or the person that is interacting with the device. This comes in handy for this because we can now use the text only option to make sure that we have the exact player name, whoever's interacting with our NPC. So to create this little effect, we need to make sure that we have a few settings right. First of all, hologram should be to off, hologram strength to off as well. Hologram animation doesn't matter. Show base off. Player details needs to be something like you can put it on above, you can put it on mid or below, but don't put it to off because then it would not show the player actual name. No curves, otherwise we will have a big curve, which we don't want. And other than that, make sure that there's no audio, and then very important is that register player when receiving from. This will make sure that we have the player name as soon as we interact with the device. So this needs to be the exact same channel as this little thing over here. So you can see here, if we interact channel 1, if we press the button, then it's gonna activate and basically tells the device that this is our player. For this one, we also need to make sure that it only pops up if we are actually activating and basically the sequence goes on. Then we want to also remove it. So make sure that you have the same channels here, enabled on channel 1, disabled on channel 2, or whatever you want to use here. And that is basically all we have to do. Other than that, we just need to make sure that there's also text along with the player name. So you can basically use any billboard. The important thing is that you use Burbank font and light outline. That is basically the same font as this one over here. So it doesn't look the same, you can see the clear difference, but it looks the nearest to the actual player name. And then the same thing over here, make sure that you have a set visible text on the same channel, channel 1 and channel 2, when this should be hidden. Also make sure that at the game start you turn everything to off here, so this needs to be on none. But there's one little detail which you might have missed, and that you can see that if we talk to Jonesy, Jonesy actually waves at us, which is very cool and very interesting thing that you can now do with the newest device. So I'll quickly show you how you can do that as well. So to make the NPC actually wave at us, we can for the first time ever use the character device controller. This is a very cool device where you can basically choose multiple emotions, multiple skins, and multiple emotes in just one single click of a button with any trigger device. So in here, it's basically the same thing as the character device, other than it's not an actual character device. And the only way in how we can actually make the character do something is via channels. So in here, for example, we have the wave emote, and we can perform the emote while doing channel 1. So that means as soon as we press channel 1, which is interact with the character is going to do the wave emote and then go back into his idle form. Also for our text that we have above, we obviously don't want it to stay there forever. So we need to make sure that it displays and also disappears automatically. For that, we can use a simple trigger here, which we're going to use a 3-second delay on, which means that the player has basically 30 seconds time to read the text and then it disappears. All you have to do is basically just put a delay in here, then make sure that everything is turned off like usual, and then when triggered on channel 1, and then triggered when transmitting on channel 2. And basically all we'd have to do in here, as already said, put a 3-second delay in here, or however long you want the people to read the text. Obviously, the longer the text, the more time you should people to read the text. And then we go all the way down here to when triggered, transmit on channel 1. That means as soon as we press talk to Jonesy, this trigger is going to get triggered, going to have a 3-second delay, which means it wait 3 seconds until it's actually triggering the last channel over here, and then triggers channel 2, which means all the text is going to disappear and start the next text. Super simple, super easy. So what we created so far is our NPC talking to us, waving at us, saying our name, and then removing the text and then moving up to the next text. And then we come up to this little screen, which I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so to create the do you want to buy a gun and then yes or no, we need a billboard and 2 buttons. And yeah, basically the same thing as before. Just make sure that you put any text, Burbank, light outline, make sure that it is disabled from start. So for the channels, it is set text visible on channel 2, which is basically when this disappears, this appears. And on channel 3 is then the next step where you can then move on and create even more. So that is completely custom on you then. So for the buttons, there's also nothing new, really nothing changing over the years in Fortnite Creative. For the buttons, they're still working properly. Make sure that everything is turned off, sound is turned off, the devices are turned off so we don't see them from the game start. We only want to see them if this text pops up. Also, make sure that you have an interaction text, so we have yes and no in our case. If we turn this device off, we actually want an interaction radius, so this device can actually work properly. And then we also want changes for enabling and disabling, so we want to make sure that as soon as this text pops up, the devices are also getting enabled. So same thing here, disabling, obviously we also don't want the device to stay around forever. And we also need interaction. So these obviously needs to be different. So for yes, I have channel 4, and for no, I have channel 5. So you can have different options depending on what you press. So from here on, everything stays the same. We have Hey Richie Tunes, I was waiting for you. And then the new text pops up. Do you want to buy a gun? And we can press yes or no. So you can see here that if I press no, for example, the character is reacting to it and is crying. And if we quickly wait, we can talk to him again. And we can see that we can also press yes, and then the character is also reacting to it and giving us a gun. So this is basically working the same way as it was with the waving before. All you have to do is make sure that you have the character device, have the right animations or emotes in that case to make sure that it performs the correct action. So for example, if we say no, we want a cry idle, so make sure that you have change idle here. And for example, on the, if we say yes, we want a not hat, but this one is an emote, so we have to put in the correct channel here. So the difference between emotes are that they're just lasting for like 3 seconds or something, and the idles are obviously lasting for the entire round. And then after that, very important that we obviously make sure that as soon as we press any of the options, so for example, if you press yes, then we want the text to be disabled, and we also want the buttons to be disabled. So you can do that the same way as we did that before. So you can see here, obviously the same thing. If we press a no in this case, then we're going to trigger channel 3. Channel 3 is going to disable the text and the buttons, and we're good to go. And then the last thing is obviously making sure that the people actually get the prize or the thing that they pressed. So if we have pressed no, then just the whole thing resets. And if they press yes, they get a gun. So you can see here, this is how you can give people gun. Make sure that you have time before first spawn to never, and time between spawns also to never. And then you have channels in enable and spawn item. Also very cool that you can have options like when item picked up. You can have that on a custom channel. So for example, if I pick up the gun, the whole NPC resets. You can do that same thing here with the character controller device. For example, you can see on channel 8, change to a waiting idle again. And it is basically in how you can now create very advanced NPCs with just these few new little options that we have. The character controller device or character device controller is really helping us out, especially in terms of memory and in complexity, because it sounds super simple. All you have to do is just put down a bunch of emotes, put down a bunch of emotions, and you can create really custom NPCs. That's been it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Hopefully you learned something today, and I will see you guys back in the next one. Bye.